Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Folks, this is Philip Lomboy. Welcome to the program. Since 2009, the hit television show Shark Tank has brought the world of entrepreneurship front and center to millions of households. Every contestant with a product and a dream wants a handshake deal with one of the sharks. Now, unfortunately, 20% of these deals don't come to fruition after the investors complete their due diligence. According to today's guest, success requires more than just a slick product and a TV appearance. Chris Saturnio is the owner of Saturnio Design and has spent the last 20 years helping brands grow with innovative design and a deep knowledge of the full product development cycle. Today, he shares his approach to navigating the complex design process, resulting in a successful product launch. I'm excited to bring you this fascinating conversation with Chris Saturnio. Chris, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks, Philip.
Now, I wanted to just jump right in with you. Just explain, what is Saturnio Design and what do you do for your clients?
So, I have a different approach when it comes to design. Instead of being a design consultant, I consider myself a design coach. And so I really look at it in regards to, using a creativity shift to empower the connections between the client's idea and the motive process to bring the idea to life. Really trying to understand, what is it that really drives their passion behind the idea, right? Taking a really holistic approach to navigate the complex product creation process. Guide them through it, give them the navigational tools for them to make their idea a reality.
So in terms of the people that you help, is there a specific profile? Is it like large companies? Is it like kind of solopreneurs? Where do you kind of hang your hat, and what is your wheelhouse in terms of your clients?
So I personally enjoy working with the solopreneurs, working with the grassroots efforts, right? The people that have this kind of initial idea, right? Something that they woke up in the middle of the night and they thought it was a great idea that they want to, kind of follow through with. Something that really drives their passion, right? And really understanding, how can I support them? How can I support them to that process, right? How can their ideas align with their own core values, right? What is something that's really driving them? And so I really love working with these small solopreneurs, maybe someone that's starting up, maybe like an initial startup, or even a smaller brand. To really help them kind of build out their process, right? How to build a full holistic process to bring their ideas to life and get them out to the market and launch them.
So for these solopreneurs, typically what would their normal process be if they didn't have somebody of your skill and talent available to them? They didn't know that there were design coaches available, and people that were able to kind of approach their idea in a holistic manner. What would they normally do in a traditional sense?
A lot of times, they would go directly to a larger design firm, right? A design firm would have designers, engineers, developers, product managers. A lot of times that would be the main course that a lot of the solopreneurs would go to. They would go to these larger design firms, but there's also that apprehension, right? Like, when you're going to these larger design firms, that means there's also larger capital involved, right? And so I look at it in regards to, encompassing my, 25 years in the design space of, going from initial idea to product manufacturing to product launch, and using that to really support these solopreneurs and say, hey, let me coach you through this process. Let me get you through some of the main challenges that may have kept you from even taking this idea, from your head to paper. And so that's why that's where I really come in and really provide that support for them, as opposed to, remove some of the intimidation, right? Where it's like, as a solopreneur, I have a great idea. Now I have to, interview this large design firm, right? Not even knowing what the design firm is about, right? Not being intimidated by, we have designers, there's engineers, there's manufacturing, there's all these different aspects where, as a design coach, I get to get down to their level and I ask them the simple question of, how can I best support you? Like, what are the things that could get you to the next level? Like, what could get you to take the leap from idea in the head to idea on paper to the next phase? And how can I walk them through that process?
It sounds to me like you would fill kind of in between what you were just talking about, like large design firms and small, like contractors, right? Going to Upwork or Fiverr, like, okay. And you kind of like are in the middle of that where you can provide both the design, approach and work, but you still have, you have the ability to look at a bigger picture of where the design, can go or should go based on your clients, their vision for what they want to create. Is that fair to say?
Exactly, exactly. One of the key things I look for is alignment. Alignment with myself and the client, right? How could I align with certain aspects of the process that they really want to get involved on, right? Like you mentioned Fiverr, right? Fiverr is great, right? But you go out there and you just kind of throw your idea out there into outer space, right? And then you get a million different ideas back, right? And as an individual, how do you even start evaluating those ideas or those designs that come back to you, right? I mean, it's so intimidating to say, hey, you know what, imagine where it's like, I'm working with a client and their day job is an accountant, right? And they're being confronted with all this, creative designs, right? It's like, how do they even start to evaluate that, right? And so I look at it in regards to, how do I create that alignment with the client, right? I ask them that simple question of how can I best support you? And if they want me to come up with designs, then I'll come up with designs and I'll walk them through every single design. I'll give them the features and benefits of this product. How does this kind of match up to their original idea, right? How does this kind of take them through their design thinking process of like, as a designer, this is how I will propose this to you, right? And so it's exactly like you said there. I'm kind of that intermediary step, right? Instead of just throwing it out to, the 99 designs and the Fiverr of the world, and you're just getting some, I would say a lot of this random stuff, right? I would say probably the top maybe 2% might be only, very few of the designs that you get back, right? And you're also left to understand, how do you interpret that, right? How do you interpret that to your brand and in your vision? And then you have the larger scale, which is a design firm, where a lot of times it might be too encompassing, right? I mean, maybe the client's not quite there yet, right? They need somewhere in between there to kind of walk them through the process and help them navigate. And that's where I come along as that design coach.
I like the term that you just used as well, and that, when you get creative back, you can't just take it at face value. You actually have to interpret it into something that's actually useful, because particularly when it comes to a business idea, and it's we'll get to the what types of work you do in just a bit, but like just getting the idea there. It's not just about being creative. It's about, well, you need something that has appeal. It's going to make money. It's in line with you as a company, or even whatever your branding is, in that type of thing. So I really like that distinction that you make there.
Exactly. No, and that's why I see it as the whole process is really an actual emotive process, right? There's so many emotions involved in it. There's so many feelings involved in it. And like, when a client is, bombarded with, 100 different logo designs, right? It's like, where do they even start? Like, there's no emotions behind them. There's no feelings behind them, right? There's no one walking them through it and say, this is my thinking of why I designed it this way, right? And so I want to be that person to walk them through that and still provide the designs, right? Like when I'm designing something for a client, I'll walk them through it and say, this is the reason why, have you thought about this? This is why I did this, right? And so there is a lot of interpretation that I put into my designs that allows the clients to also start learning the process, right? That they become a designer on their own, because now they're able to understand and comprehend the process of design thinking and all the steps that go into it.
Like, whereas one, it could be, I think of it as like throwing spaghetti on the wall, right? See what sticks. Yours is a bit more strategic. It sounds like quite a bit more strategic. It's like, let's start with what you're trying to achieve first, and then we can kind of work from there and see what fits or what doesn't, as opposed to kind of, what looks good in the moment, or but they don't even evaluate, what good really means. Like and it may not be their fault, right? It sounds like it's not necessarily their fault, because if they're not designers, if they've never run through any of these types of projects before, they're not even aware of what questions to ask. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's very fair. I mean, one thing I really love taking clients through is the simple problem solving kind of process, right? What is it that you're trying to solve, right? And does this, is this problem, a strategy that you want to achieve through your product design. And that's where I really walk them through that process. And that's where that design thinking is really important for them to evaluate it and also take ownership of it, right? Once they become aligned with their idea, then they become a lot more in tune with being an ownership of the idea and the actual design itself.
Now, Chris, when it comes to the type of clients that you work with, are there particular types of products that you work with more than others? Is it apparel? Is it hard goods? What are the types of design projects that you get involved in?
So, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, my background is predominantly 90% sport equipment. That's kind of where I've kind of hung my hat over the last 20 years, being involved with a lot of design of sport products. For my clients, I've worked across the full gamut. I worked on hard goods. Hard goods could be footwear, it could be luggage, it could be bags, it could be consumer electronics, to all the way through soft goods, which would be apparel. I worked with some clients, designing, a full line of yoga wear, right? Or working with, I'm actually working with a client right now, designing some dog products. And so what I really try doing is trying to understand, how can I become their coach, right? I've been doing design long enough where I have a fairly extensive process of design thinking that I can help them think through their design, whether it's a hard good, soft good. And like I said, I mean, I help clients across a full spectrum of anything from sporting goods to toys to apparel to bags to footwear.
When it comes to design itself and the approach that most people take or they have a mindset about, are there any kind of myths that you see that are prevailing, whether it's with clients or just the industry itself? They start talking to you, they have this assumption, and you're thinking to yourself, that's not really the way it works.
Yeah, I think the biggest myth when it comes to products is the simple statement of launching a product is simple. I hear it so often, and it's probably become a little more prevalent now with shows such as Shark Tank, right? Where people see people going up there asking investors for a large amount of money, right, for their product.
All you need is an idea and a prototype, and go ahead and sell it. You're good. You'll make millions, right?
Exactly. And the challenge is that it's not simple, right? It requires it's multiple levels of thinking and processes, and on top of that, there's a lot of capital involved. Right. I mean, I remember I was talking to a client, and the client was saying, "Oh yeah, I have $1,000. I want to launch this product." I go, "Well, you could probably multiply that by 100 because that's probably how much it will cost for you to launch this idea." And it kind of caught them off guard. They're like, "Oh, wait a minute, isn't it just like, don't we need a prototype like you mentioned, and just get it out to people?" We're like, "Well, it's beyond that, right? There's product testing, there's market research, there's branding, there's intellectual property, right? If it's something unique that you want to protect." There's multiple levels to it. And so that's the biggest myth I hear, that launching a product is simple. And it's not. And that's where, I come into the play of becoming that design coach to say, let me help you simplify the process. It's not a simple process, but let me help you simplify by using my experience.
Is there a place for, you mentioned Shark Tank, very, very popular. While it does maybe give people the wrong sense of what really would go into product for designing a product and trying to get it to market. Are there any benefits to shows like that, and from your point of view?
I mean, I think Shark Tank is great. I mean, I watch it personally, and the reason why I love it is that it's bringing the highlight and importance of design and products, right? Just in general, where what Shark Tank doesn't show is that the people out there asking for funding, they may have spent a good 2 or 3 years prior to that getting the product to the level it is where they're showing it at a Shark Tank, right? That, again, that's not every product. I've seen some products in Shark Tanks are like, wow, wait a minute, what were they thinking? Getting it to that point. But I would say, majority of the products, there was a life cycle way before Shark Tank, right? And so, shows like Shark Tank just bring to light in regards to how important it is for these ideas to become reality, right? Because a lot of these ideas are game-changing ideas that, once they're able to, take that idea out of their head and get it on paper, do some work to get it to a point where it's, comparable enough to get in front of investors, I think that's what I love about Shark Tank, is that it's bringing it to the forefront now. It's bringing products and ideas to the forefront, and showing the normal person that, it is possible, that anyone could do it, right? Anyone could get out there. If you have an idea, pursue it, because that idea just remains an idea if it just stays in your head.
It's probably it's easier for folks when they watch something like Shark Tank to focus on the sexy part of it, like the showmanship. I mean, it is an entertainment program as well, but don't just stick with what you see there. There's a lot of other stuff that's going on in the background. Even if those folks get funded, this is where people like you would probably come in as well. It's like, okay, well, here you might have had this idea that's gone this far, but if you wanted to go any further than what it is now, you need to put more thought, put more strategic effort into it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, one of the practices I follow is something called design for manufacturing. And there's design for the sake of design, but there's also another aspect, which is design for manufacturing. Is that how do you make your design into a manufacturable good? Right.
You're talking about scalability, making sure that it's not there. It's the difference between doing it in your garage, Etsy style, or getting it so you'd be able to serve millions of people at once. Is that fair to say?
Exactly. And that scalability is important for them to understand from shows like Shark Tank, is that, although they may get funding to get to the next level of their product, can they design it for manufacturing? Can they take that actual product idea and design and take it to a manufacturable level where now they can make, instead of just making one in your garage, now you're making 10,000, right, through a manufacturer. And so that's a whole nother aspect that's not seen through, through shows like Shark Tank, is that, that funding that they may be asking for $1 million funding, but I would say 90% of that will be spent on manufacturing and procuring product, right? But if the design cannot even be manufactured, then you'll be eating up that capital fairly quickly, right? And so and that's where there's a lot of behind the scenes of the process that happened beyond that initial funding, right?
When it comes to let's say hypothetically, a small business owner, the person that you talked about, kind of a solopreneur, they have an idea in their head. What keeps them from going to somebody that has your skill and talents? Is it just the idea that it's easy, it's simple, they can do it on their own, or are there other things that are holding them back from getting that type of help? What have you seen?
So, I mean, personally, some of the things I hear from some of my clients is that they felt that coming up with an idea would be too technical of a skill for them. It's beyond their own personal skills, or they have this intimidation that they must know every single aspect of the idea. Like they need to come to the table with their idea fully fleshed out. And that's something that I walk them through that process. I walk them through the idea of, what's the experience that you want to have with your product? What's the experience that you want your consumer to have with the product? What are the emotions that are evoked when you think about your product? So I think about it as a mindset first, right? Understanding that, what is the experience you want to create with your product? And
so there's a misconception that people have to have more, like their idea has to be a bit more cooked in order to be able to speak to somebody else about it. That's not necessarily the case. I mean, somebody like you would be able to come in and help them refine it even more before you take any steps in terms of even shopping it around. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. And that's the intimidation a lot of clients have, is that, when they're going to a large design firm, right, they're thinking, okay, now I'm vying for, 5 hours of this large design firm's time, right? I need to have my idea fully fleshed out for it to be worth their time. You
don't want to waste their time. You don't want to waste your time. Exactly. So let me just have something ready and it's perfect already. And then they just have to say yes to it.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's where I come in and say, hey, you know what? Let me walk you through your steps. Let me walk you through the steps to, empower your idea to become reality, right? Really give some legs to your idea, right? Maybe, like I said, it's emotions, it's a feeling, it's an experience, right? Have them think through it with me and have me use my design thinking to make that idea, become more of a reality for them.
That's great. Yeah, I think you're probably used to that all the time in terms of, you have an idea and you don't have any fears about having it kind of not fully cooked, right? I mean, you recognize there's an iterative process to it, and it's always a constant revision. Doesn't necessarily have to be, it's probably not going to be perfect right out of your head.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something that goes back to, some of the mindset, affirmations I have for myself is that, it's that practice makes progress, right? It's that practice of, practice it. It's that concept, right? It's like, no good design came up with one. It was started with one concept. There might have been multiple iterations of that design, right, to get it to that final stage. Like the iPhone, right? The iPhone went through multiple iterations before it became what it is now. And so it's just that thinking of, understanding that, it's that fail forward, right? To understand that, for us to fail fast and understand why a concept didn't work is actually beneficial. It's beneficial for us to know exactly why it's not working, right? And to move to the next concept and move to the next concept and move through the iterations until we feel that perfect alignment of, our goals of the idea and what the product is.
So get somebody to help you as soon as possible is what you're saying.
Right? Exactly.
Get a professional, get someone that has some skill, but again, not just in the design of it, but in thinking, well, this is going to be coming further down the path if it is a viable idea. So start thinking about those things right now as well.
Exactly. And that's where I come into it in regards to, the mindset side of it, right? That's where I call myself a coach, but also bringing in my technical skills, right? Of launching, I must have launched over, 500 products in my career span, or probably even more than that, depending on the product lines, where it's like, I could still take your idea and still bring in my technical skill to make it a reality, right? Find the factories that align with your core values, get the manufacturing, get the launch date that you need, and getting you to a point where your product will be on the shelf at retail.
Chris, let's back up a bit, and I mean you're very skilled. You can speak to all of these things intelligently, but how did you get your start in design, and having manufacturing, keeping that in mind, and all the things that come into play. How did you get involved? How did you get started?
So my background is that I'm trained as what they call an actual industrial designer. Industrial designer designs a product. Traditionally, industrial designers will usually involved in the first part of the phase, which is usually the concepts, the idea generation, and the actual design of the product. And so what I benefited from my career is that I worked for some very large corporate brands. Like I worked for a licensee of Nike. I worked for an apparel brand called Highlight. I worked for Fox Racing. And so I was able to get integrated into the full process. And I did that mainly on my own. Like I wanted to learn more, right? I had this desire to kind of learn about the full process from concept all the way through manufacturing. And so I started doing design, I started doing product development, I started doing manufacturing, I started doing sourcing, all the full aspects where I started just training myself in regards to how do I take a product from an idea all the way through manufacturing. And, I've even been involved on the product planning phase, on the product management side, understanding, how do we create merchandising plans for this product line. And so that's really been my background, doing that for the last, 25 years. Working for these large corporates and getting involved in every single stage of the design phase, and really developing my own process, developing my own ways of knowing, what are the things that work, what things work and what things don't work, right? I've been able to evaluate that process, very closely to develop my own process.
That's excellent. As you think about these clients, these solopreneurs, these small businesses, and they've got an idea in their head for a product, to hopefully scale out and get out there and to realize, what is the most important question that they could ask themselves so that they start things off on the right foot?
I would say, the biggest question they can ask themselves is, what is the experience they want to have, with that product, Like, what's the impact they want that product to have on their end consumer? Really looking into that, and how do they align that with their own beliefs and their core values? Because it becomes so intimate to them, right? That their product becomes who they are. It's kind of like their brand, right? They become the brand of the product. That it's really important for them to find that alignment to understand, how will that idea align with their own core values, and what's the impact they want to make in the world or the end consumer.
This is great. Chris, appreciate you being on the program. How can people reach out to you, reach out to Saturnio Design if they want to get some help from you?
So the best way is, send me an email. I love just kind of meeting new people. So feel free to shoot me an email at chris@saturniodesign.com. So it's SATURNIO design, DESIGN.com. And you can also check out the website. It's saturniodesign.com.
Chris, appreciate you being on the program again.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.